There we go. Okay. Thank you all for joining us for Encore, Moving Forward Through Uncertainty with Resilience. We are very pleased today to have transformation coach Maritza Coscarelli joining us and sharing some tools and techniques that we can use to navigate these transitions that we're all dealing with at this critical time in our life. Encore has been hosting these weekly events of educational information, everything from learning Zoom, which I still need some work on. There's lots to learn, to helping get through these challenges and move forward with whatever it is, whether it be personally, professionally, and just to help us get through, because we all seem to have so much that we are dealing with at this time. So if you haven't visited us at encorepbc.org, please take the time to do that after the call and learn more about what we do to help people, particularly in the 50+ community, with resources for jobs and volunteer opportunities. So, and I'll be sharing more about that at the end of the call. So without further ado, sorry for the slight delay, but I am going to turn it over to Maritza. Welcome,
Wonderful.
Maritza. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I see that we have quite a few participants, and I want to welcome you all. It's a pleasure to meet you virtually. I like to be interactive, and therefore I'm going to do a little Zoom education for you before starting, and we'll see how we are able to use this technology. If you go to your Zoom toolbar, you see where it says participants 16. I see the number. I'm not sure if you do. And if you click on participants, you will see a list of all the people that are on this call. That's a great tool for networking, because you can then reach out to all these people, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, a private message if you don't already know one another. But it's also a great tool for a speaker or somebody directing a webinar, because if you scroll down, you'll see at the very bottom it says invite, mute me, or raise hand. So I'm going to be asking some questions of you right now. And I hope some of you will have some wonderful answers. And you can raise your hand, and I will see a little blue hand. I just raised mine. And I will be able to call on you by name. Now, I can't see you all when I'm sharing my screen, so I may not be seeing your beautiful faces, but I will be listening to you if you are the person with a question or an answer for me if your hand is raised. So if you're sharing my screen, thumbs up from you, Christine, if you can see where I raised my little blue hand on the participants list. And if not, if you can test yours and see if you can. Because my question for you is going to be this. My extrovert in the group, that woman who just always speaks up bravely and boldly, can be the first to answer. What attracted you to this particular talk when you saw that it was moving forward through uncertainty with resilience? Just in like 5 seconds. I would love to have time as a coach to hear the whole story. But just what attracted you, and what expectation do you have? So in other words, why'd you come? And what would you love to take away, even if it was one thing? Anyone willing to answer that as our opening moment today? Raise your hand. Oh, I see a hand go up. I'm going to lower mine. And I don't see a name on some of people's screen, but there's a woman with a beautiful blue blouse clicking and waving.
That's me.
Thank you. Unmute yourself, Dr. Carolyn. There's your name. And speak to me, please. Good afternoon. Welcome and nice to meet you.
Thank you. I have been looking for different organizations that I can network with. I'm growing a new business. I started my new business. I'm a neurologically based chiropractor. And so I opened my new business in January, and then COVID hit in March. And so I've been at a very much a stall. So I am looking to network with a lot of people, and I saw that you were out in a time that I can meet, and I just want to get to know people and get my message out. So that's why I'm here.
Excellent. And thank you for sharing that candidly. And you are in the right place. And I, in my young life that I'll only share a little bit of today, was a chiropractic assistant part-time and certified in my first career as my part-time work in New York and in Palm Coast or St. Augustine, Florida. So 12 years as a CA. So
That's awesome.
I understand your work, and I'm excited, and I help women in our demographic with their new businesses. So I think that you're in the right place. I've met some of these women. This organization is fantastic. So welcome, Dr. Carolyn.
Thank you. I'm going to step away for a moment because I have a patient coming in, but it'll be quick, and then I'll be right back.
That sounds good. And if there's going to be any background sound, just remember to mute yourselves in the little corner box with 3 dots, everyone. You can stop video or mute yourself. All right. I'm going to take time actually for just one more if somebody was just itching to answer. I don't see a raised hand. And if there is none, then I will get right into our talk because I know our time is limited. All right, let's just get into the material. I'm going to close this participants box. There is also on your toolbar a chat option, and it is under more for me, but for you, it's at your bottom or top toolbar. And I would request that you use that chat. I will not look at it during this presentation, but right after I will. That's the perfect spot for topics of concern, debate, or questions. So just chat in there. Christine might be able to peek at it before I can. All right. Terrific. Well, who the heck am I, right? That's a question I ask myself. You see, when you get in front of an audience, they have zero concern about you, honestly. No matter how good-hearted you are, no matter how empathetic you are, when we attend something, either consciously or subconsciously, we're thinking, what's in it for me? And who is this woman? Right? In today's world, you Googled me, you trust the people who referred me or recommended me to the organization, and hopefully your assumption is this person's going to show up prepared and there'll be at least one pearl of wisdom, is my story, right? That I can take away and that I can action. The trouble with a lot of the work happening for mindset work and coaching work is that a lot of people are out there peddling nice, positive information and then not leaving you with anything to do with that information. So we've lived long enough that we know knowledge is great, but wisdom is putting that knowledge into action. That is my hope for you today, because you see, we are in uncertain times. And as you might have seen in the synopsis of this, I believe all times are uncertain, but these keep getting a little more complicated. I'm going to be really candid with you, and I'm going to ask you to trust me, but more importantly, trust yourself. Use your own best learning mechanisms and try to suspend judgment and see if there's something here that might really move the needle for you in your daily life and in your career and business. Today is a little serendipitous, auspicious in fact, because this week my daughter was personally attacked in a way that is dismantling a career that she has built for 10 years. When I decided to speak on resilience, sure, there was a pandemic, not a small thing, a collective trauma. And then there was the economic crisis that comes from us being in lockdown, another collective trauma. And then George Floyd was killed. And then the question that we've dealt with, the concern and the systemic racism of our society was brought to light like when your sewerage explodes everywhere. And it was something we could not look away from. And then, as if that's not enough, on the internet and in social media realms, if that is part of your life, the discussion begins. And this is a place where we can be outspoken and anonymous at the same time. And we all know there's a challenge with that. So I come to you today injured, but resilient. And so the topic is appropriate, not just to every single one of us, not just to society as a whole now. But my husband says, it's great to make plans till you get punched in the face. And he is quoting Mike Tyson. So I have a really strong message for you, but it's only really tested in challenging times. You see, when we're winning and things are going well, and even when we're coping well with a trauma like we've been experiencing for the last approximately 90 days, it's all well and good until out of left field, something else hits you. So how do we practice resilience? You see, the truth about resilience is that first we must be well. Whether we are building a new business, entering the workforce again, taking care of children or grandchildren or elderly parents, whatever we are doing, our first priority that we often leave for last is our well-being. Raise your hand if you're guilty of that.
Mm.
We all do it. So I am a big proponent of that self-care, self-focus, self-reflection. Time alone in the quiet is not selfish, especially not for women, and particularly not for mature women, because it is not selfish, it is necessary. It is how we stay visible, vocal, and vital and relevant. We have so much wisdom, so much beautiful energy, so much love and kindness and knowledge and experience to offer the world, and we must be well to do that. So I had an aha moment. Resilience, defined as the capacity to overcome quickly and recover from difficulty, is actually miscommunicated and mal-defined, because we cannot bounce back or push through something if we haven't taken the time to recover, adjust, and adapt. So if well-being is the priority, and we are finding ourselves in an individual and collective trauma and crisis, complicated by trauma and crisis, complicated by our own personal trauma and crisis, our first and most important thing is, how do we recover? How do we adjust? How do we adapt? Resilience is not endurance. Resilience is recovery. You see, the very lack of a recovery period, you can read this for yourself, is often holding us from our collective ability to be resilient and successful. The Harvard Business Review did a lot of research around this topic. And it's so interesting to me, and maybe this happens to you too, that when you're really interested in something, all of a sudden, everything around you has to do with that. Every article that comes up, every book somebody recommends, even a billboard that you see as you're driving down the highway. This is our reticular activating system, is it not, Dr. Carolyn? This is the brain that once something is in your filter of discovery, all of a sudden it's everywhere. So I had already written this talk when, boom, this Harvard Business Review article shows up. The lack of personal recovery is costing companies $62 billion. Yes, that's billion, not million. So what do I mean by recovery? What is one to do, and how did I figure this out? I, my friends, in my first volume, used to call it a chapter before I got into my late 50s. In my first volume of life was a professional ballerina and contemporary dancer at a high level. I was hired, I got a contract, I traveled the world, and I was under 20 years old. I thought I knew a lot, and I thought I had a plan. And plans are really good, right? Plans are actually useless. Winston Churchill says, planning is invaluable. Thinking that you're going to stick to the plan, useless. Life happens on life's terms. I got sideswiped and smacked so many times, it minimized my self-esteem, and I was in a pattern, a mental pattern of self-loathing to the point of suicidal ideation. So I had made my dream come true, and at the same time, I was lower than the curb. And I was putting on and putting on and putting on until it exhausted me. And then real life happened. I married Romeo. He was very persistent. He hung out 6 years around a ballerina who didn't want to be a wife and mother because he knew I was the one. Well, guess what? 33 years later, I still am. But in year one, I came home to a Dear Joan note. I had to leave town. You've got to move out of the apartment. I'm in terrible debt and I'm addicted to gambling. I had dated this guy for 6 years, didn't want to see the signs. I was in denial. I have had a few times where I have been not against the ropes like Floyd Mayweather, but knocked out with somebody counting 10, 9, 8, and me thinking I would never get back up again. But I found a village of healers. If you are going it solo today, my friends, don't anymore because you're here with Encore. There is a way for all of us to have a team. Those of us that go solo don't ever win because we're playing always against someone with a team. Find your people. Find your support system. Find those you can be transparent and honest with so much that the kind of vulnerability I'm showing with you now comes easily. Because today, the order of events to be in recovery and then be resilient and then be relevant is empathy, listening and understanding, transparency and authenticity and vulnerability, showing your true colors, not to the point of being unprofessional or not private, but showing your humanity. And then comes credibility. If you knew nothing about me, you would not still be listening intently at this point. So how do we define resilience? It differs from how we recover and rebuild resilience. You see, it's defined as recovering quickly from difficulty, but it's also adapting to change, especially under stress or duress. A lack of recovery doesn't make that first definition possible. We have disrupted sleep when we're worried about the state of current affairs or our families. We have the impact, some of us, of overworking. And we're in a depleted state. And there is no way that a ball that is dried out, broken, right, and with no bounce to it can bounce back. But that's what we often expect of ourselves. So recovery requires two components. Major research has been done on this. I won't even try to pronounce these last names, all of them. But this group of researchers did a paper in 2014, and they realized that part of it is that what we think is recovery isn't. In other words, just because you decide to stop working and lay in your bed doesn't mean you're recovering. You may be dehydrated. You may be having speeding thoughts in your brain. You may be up hormonally or from stress at 3 a.m. So just because you have stopped work or stopped caregiving or stopped doing the thing that you do all day, and too much of probably, doesn't mean you're in recovery. So then how do we? How do we recover? There's 5 essential steps to actually building real resilience through recovery. They have not only been put together in my mind, but they have been studied and written about for centuries. And they work. And they are simple because you see in life, nothing is more impactful and nothing is more results oriented than simplicity. If you take nothing else today, decide to simplify everything that you do, everything that you're involved in, your own home, your own thinking. Number 1 in the 5 steps to recovery, find a sense of purpose. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is my favorite book of all time. You may have read it too. I say read it again. It isn't a lack of understanding or conflict or crisis or pandemics that tear us apart and don't allow us to get back up from our foreheads on the floor. It is not finding a clear sense of purpose. And we hear this thrown around now like a catchphrase. So what is a sense of purpose? It's your why. Why do you get up day to day? Why do you attempt to set goals and do things? There is a great singular reason there. And if you can find that, I highly recommend Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. Finding Your Why is the workbook version of his Golden Circle. His original bestseller is Start With Why. There's much more out there on this. I could go on and on. But that is what kept Viktor Frankl alive and going in Auschwitz and after. And his book, read it again. It's just so inspirational. Increase your self-efficacy. Believing in yourself and being confident is not a one-off. Sure, I'm a confident woman today, right now in front of you. I work on this every day. I provide my clients with 10 ways that cost nothing to build your confidence daily. I have done Facebook Lives. You can follow me on Maritza Coscarelli, and it's not about me. It's a simple formula to self-efficacy. Every day, do something that makes you slightly uncomfortable or that you're scared of, that you feel a little nervous about or tenuous about. That's the thing. Do that thing, because the confidence doesn't come from thinking about it. The confidence comes from taking the action. That I used to write emails reaching out for work for my company, and even when I was still employed in corporate. And I remember rereading and editing. Anybody else do that? And then being real nervous, like hit send, like I can't labor over this anymore. If you're not that scare-sighted, that means scary and excited, one of my coaches made it up, then it's not even worth your time and energy. But that will build your confidence. That will build your belief in you. Social support. Talk it out, and even better, actively and truly listen. It's hard for me. It's hard for a lot of women, especially us chatty Cathys. But I make a career now of listening actively and asking thought-provoking and powerful questions. That is exactly how I began with you this afternoon. What brings you here and what do you expect? What's your singular takeaway? Really, how did that land with you? What does that mean to you? Talk it out. Be real. I'm feeling so wounded for my daughter right now. Today's a little better than 4 days ago. Deeper level conversation is back to human. Technology is a wonderful tool, but guess what it's doing? It's bringing us back to where personal is power. Flexibility and agility are essential. I know we have our own moral values and our core values. I know we have vision and missions and all the things we believe in. We have worked a long time to cement those. But if they are fully cemented, then we can't move ourselves into a growth zone and we can't recover easily. We've got to wear our masks in certain settings. We must stay 6 feet apart. If we're not an activist in the Black Lives Matters movement, or if we are not knowledgeable about the actual history of race relations and the conflicts, we need to be flexible, agile, and quiet and listen and allow ourselves to get uncomfortable. And yes, we're going to make our own decisions. Yes, we're critical thinkers. Now, the difference between flexibility and agility. Flexibility is the adjustment to change long term. It's I'm open. I'm here today listening to Maritza, connecting with Encore because I'm open. I'm open to new ideas, to a new way of looking at something, to learning a skill I didn't have, right? To trying to volunteer somewhere or work in an arena where I haven't worked before. That's flexibility. Agility is in the moment. In the moment. You're at the new workspace and all of a sudden, boom, there's crisis of some sort. How quickly are you able to decision make in a way that collaboratively helps all, communally does not cause any hurt, and yet you can move that quickly. And finally, I know I'm a bit of a Pollyanna, but really I'm not. I'm a real optimist, optimistically realistic. Positivity has been studied in depth now. It took 80 years for positive psychology to be developed, a little too long in the profession. Ignoring the problem isn't how we stay positive. It's understanding it and then understanding the temporary nature of all things. When it's very personal or when it affects us for a long period of time, we feel like it's just going to be like this forever. But see, the nature of things is change. And we know that in nature. And we are nature. We're energy. We're alive. And we are constantly in flux. We don't have to like it. We just need to accept it and find a way to think about it. And one of the things that shifts me and the people I work with a lot to positivity is, what am I supposed to learn from this? Of course, I don't like seeing my child of 26 that built something so beautiful for 10 years dragged through the dirt and given labels that are untrue. And it's disastrous for me, but it's 10 times more disastrous for her because she's a 26-year-old young woman. And back then, we think we know everything and we think we're so grown. And then we fast forward 30 years have passed and we go, oh, this will be a blip in the picture of her big life. So how do I stay positive and how do I help her stay positive? It's temporary. It will pass and there is something to learn. We choose to be the victim or victorious. That is a choice. So sharpen your serious and super self-care skills, my friends. As I said earlier, this is not selfish. This is necessary. You see, resilience is essential, but it doesn't happen without mindful and intentional recovery. I hope that you have taken those 5 skills, and Christine has this PowerPoint. I can actually send it to her as a PDF, and if it helps to remind you of some things that you didn't take notes on, that you didn't really comprehend fully or have questions on, you can use that PDF and you can reach out to me at Maritza Coscarelli on Facebook, on Instagram. Maritza Coscarelli Coaching is a page I have on Facebook, and or you can have my email directly through Encore. I'm here to tell you, Arianna Huffington had a breakdown, and some of you may know this, a physical breakdown where she collapsed in her office years ago. And it led her to a new platform that she shares called Thrive Global, and to write this book called The Sleep Revolution. And what happened during that time is that she came to know that our most important recovery is good sleep, and we have challenges with that in our society and as women of a particular age demographic. So we sacrifice sleep in the name of productivity. But ironically, our loss of sleep, despite the extra hours we spend at work, adds up to 11 days of lost productivity per year per worker. In dollars, $2,280 per that worker. And that's part of her book, The Sleep Revolution, which I highly recommend, especially if you're either by choice not getting enough sleep or by other symptoms. You see, I want to be very, very clear with you today. If you're constantly trying to endure, push through, and bounce back without real focus on your holistic health, your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit, you are doing yourself a disservice, and eventually you will run out of gas and not be well. So your first point of order is focus first and foremost on your well-being. Create a current reality that allows you to do that to the best of your ability, and stay strong. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can have some time together.
Thank you so much, Maritza. That was amazing, and so many wonderful ideas for everyone to take away. And I love your focus on holistic health, because I think in these times, so many of us are so directed into the moving forward. How do we earn money again? How do we get back to work? And we're so focused on what we need to do for that type of survival, and we're not really spending enough time on ourselves and the healing. So I like that you refer to it as recovery also, because I think, the media has us convinced that this is the new normal, and there's nothing about it that's normal. And the fact that it is a recovery and it is a process that we need to go to, I think once we accept that, and with the thought process that you've shared with us, I think we can all start to move forward more effectively, as opposed to being inundated with what we're being fed. We need to really start within. And so I really appreciate everything that you said. And I definitely think that it's very powerful, and definitely resilience is something that we need to work towards. It's not something that is going to just naturally show up because we're busy and thinking we're productive, which so many of us do. So I'd like to
Christine, before you open to questions, I would be remiss not to say thank you. Marilyn Bieber was the person who referred me here, and I also attended an event where I was so pleased to meet Rosemary Nixon and listen to her speak. She's an amazing woman that has done a wonderful thing in starting and thriving through Encore. And I want to say thank you, because I didn't start with that and haven't said that. And I also want to say that as much as I speak in a motivational way, my purpose and my goal is always to be transformational. And so I do take women, mostly women, a few amazing men, but mostly women and corporate teams. And sure, I do a lot of this inspirational and actionable items to be well and to promote and take care of yourself. But my proprietary system is interesting, because in holistic coaching, my goal is to take you from the internal to the external to the actionable, and then to the strategic success. Again, internal, external, actionable, and strategy. Because it's all well and good to feel good in the moment of a talk or to take a few pointers away, but if we don't act on them and then create a strategy for ourselves, not a whole lot changes. And that's what's hard to do alone. That's what takes a place like Encore to really
Mhm.
do. But please, I'll hand it back over for questions.
Thank you. Yes, I definitely agree with you there. And we will be sharing the link to the recording. And if you forward me the PDF, I'll be happy to share that at the same time in case different learning people like to find different ways of approaching that. So we'll be sharing that as well. So I am going to turn it over to questions. So let's see, do we have any questions at the moment? Ladies, I don't think we have any gentlemen on the call. Ladies, comments, thoughts? What would you like to share? What would you like to ask Maritza? Is there something that popped into your head as she was speaking? Something, some aha that you may have had?
If I could just speak to your point, Maritza, about Man's Search for Meaning is one of my favorite books also. What is it that helps us survive when all around us are dying, suffering, and so forth? And it's that whole idea of finding meaning, purpose. And of course, one of the messages of Encore is helping people to find work or volunteer activity that gives them a sense of purpose and engagement with life. And the older I get, the more important it is to me to have a sense of purpose. It drives me every day. I can't imagine living without it. And I just came off another Zoom meeting. This is my third one today. And some people don't like Zoom, but I have found it opening up a whole new world of contact with people. And I was just on a Zoom call with a group called Classy, which helps nonprofits with fundraising. But they actually had a bigger message. It was about global leadership and collaboration to solve social, economic problems. And there were 5,000 people on the call, and they were all much younger than me. And it was so exciting to see young people committed to creating good in this world at a time when, you know, I kind of was getting a little discouraged about that, the way people are behaving out there, many of them. And, you know, you wonder, does anybody have that commitment to create something of value to people? And it was wonderful to see young people engaged in many, many good works. But we need to tap into the skills and talents of people who are older also. And that's our focus.
Thank you so much, Rosemary.
Thank you, Rosemary. And actually, for those on the call who don't know you, please tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been accused by my son of liking to talk about myself, but how else do you share with people unless you reveal something about yourself? So yes, after I retired as a financial advisor back in 2010 with Ameriprise, I felt the need to help people figure out what they wanted for their retirement. Because I could see working with people, most people didn't have any idea of what they wanted that future life to look like. They didn't have the tools to visualize it. So I started a retirement coaching practice. And then the more I learned about the fact of the extraordinary numbers of people turning 65 every day in this country, 10,000 people turn 65 every day in this country. And it caused me to think about what a reservoir of talent and experience that is, and how do we tap into it to improve our communities. Um, I decided to create Encore Palm Beach County, and I just wrote up a little um, position paper and started passing it around. That was 5 years ago now. And so we've gradually been engaging more and more people. I was on a call this morning with the South Florida Manufacturers Association, and I'm hoping to work with them to identify employers who are committed to hiring, retraining, and retaining older workers, mature workers. They don't really know yet what I plan to share with them, but I'm very excited about the possibilities there. So a lot of new directions we're going in, but still maintaining our focus on employment opportunities for mature people and volunteer opportunities. And I guess the last thing I would say, because we're developing a Zoom meeting for next week on volunteerism, it occurred to me that I have been a volunteer all my life, including high school, every step of the way. And despite holding full-time jobs, raising a family, and so forth. And that's, I guess, a very important part of who I am. I believe very strongly in volunteerism, finding the right thing for yourself. So I guess that covers who I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I've always had that sense of purpose. Can't imagine living without it.
May I say, Rosemary, on that topic, I'm glad you ended with purpose, because I was going to take it back there if you didn't, because I too have volunteered my whole life, even though I was in the fine arts, while I was in rigorous academics, while I was married with little kids and all of that, right? And that ties very closely to purpose, because sometimes we confuse purpose and we think it's all about us. But really, purpose is who are we here to serve, and how can we do that? And nothing is more fueling of recovery and resilience than getting out of ourselves. When we allow ourselves to get self-absorbed, which is what Viktor Frankl, part of his book and part of what Simon Sinek shares so beautifully. It's like, why are we here and for what purpose to another? Nothing is more exhausting, depressing, all those things, which is why isolation is challenging, right? Than being self-absorbed and self-focused. So even in the situation that I haven't gone into detail for sake of my daughter's privacy, I could wallow, but who does that help? It doesn't help me, it doesn't help her, and it certainly doesn't help the greater cause. So purpose is super tied in with volunteerism and or working, whether it is as a volunteer or, you know, a small part-time job or re-entering the workforce full-time. It has a lot to do with finding purpose.
Here's Rosemary. Here's Rosemary. She's the founder 5 years ago. She's phenomenal. She's really terrific.
Well, we're not where I want us to be. I keep saying, oh, I gotta get this where I want it to be before it's too late, you know. I'm running out of time. But the thing is that having a sense of purpose is good for your health. I mean, there's been a lot of studies that have demonstrated that. And from a selfish point of view, being a volunteer, being involved in a lot of interesting things, it opens my world up more. I get more from the things I do, I'm sure, than I give. And so there's been actually a decline in volunteerism among people who are over 50. That's also been researched, and it's our hope that we'll encourage and find ways to engage people more in volunteerism. but helping people find work has also taken, the front stage, because so many people need to work, even though they're older. Well, I'm a big believer in work too, as being good for you.
I'd like to add to that, if I might.
Sure.
Research has shown over the last 100+ years that unresolved sympathetic stress is the #1 cause of all disease. And we know that our society is not particularly healthy. So what we need to do is learn how to resolve stress. It doesn't mean we're going to have less stress. It's just how our body heals and deals with that stress. So what Maritza was talking about, self-care, is so incredibly important, because the more we take care of ourselves, the more we're able to resolve that sympathetic stress. And what, I'm drawing a blank on your name, right? Rosemary, what you were just saying also about volunteering and that sort of thing. The more we give and serve others, the less stress we actually feel, because it feels good to give to others. And so both of those things that you're speaking of really make a huge difference in our overall health, because it helps us to reduce the amount of stress that we have. Even though we have a stress, it's how we deal with it that determines whether or not we get ill. So it's really good. And I like what both of you are saying, because it's so very important to keep us healthy.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Marissa, you were about to say something.
I was going to say, I'd love to hear from some of the other ladies. If in fact you do not have a question, at the very least, did you take something away either from what the doctor or Rosemary or Christine or I shared? We'd love to hear from you, because it's another thing I find that I'm working on a lot in groups and individually, is that somehow we, you alluded to this in your humor, Rosemary, that your son says you talk about yourself, but if you don't say it, if you don't reveal yourself. So there's 3 things I'm noticing in our, especially in our demographic of women, right? And that's it. We are being called to be visible, vocal, and vital. And if we are not finding it within ourselves to do that, then we must get with a trusted friend, a medical professional, a coach, a person you meet here today, I don't care who it is, the neighbor down the hall, and really speak out and share with someone what is holding us back. Because if there is something always holding all of us back, like I'm at this expansion and iteration of myself, but there's a next level. And there always is, as long as we're still breathing. And so it would be such a pleasure, although I know we have limited time, to hear from somebody who was here as an audience member. And if you're finding hesitation, just share what's on your heart, or what you thought of, or what you think of the organization, or anything that's been shared. It's such an important practice. Marilyn.
So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw my feelings in, and Maritza and I are acquainted with one another originally from Toastmasters, and I found myself recently doing a speech on an episode in my life that actually I came out of because of Encore, where I had a long-term, I was for a number of years underemployed and really struggling, and not unlike the situation many may find themselves in now. I have the job that I'm in right now because of Encore. And that resilience is really so important. And I see right now, for all of the downside of whatever we're going through, and I'm not fond of the term new normal, because it's just another episode in our lives that we have to figure out how to travel through. But it's also an opportunity, because there are jobs that are going to be available, and we can equip ourselves as best we can, reinforce our skills and how we present ourselves to the world to be part of the activity that is going to go on. And then the other thing I wanted to say, and I can really appreciate what Maritza said about authenticity, is that what I found after I gave the speech on going through that period where I went on interview after interview after interview, was that it was really difficult for me to talk about, because there was a lot of, there was just a lot of hurt. I don't want to say shame, maybe, because of the way the outside world perceives people who find themselves in a situation like that. And I really needed to get rid of that and, you know, love myself again in order to go out and continue. And maybe that's part of that resilience is, you know, not feeling any shame. And that comes from talking to other people and being around people who give you good energy. So thanks, Maritza. And thanks for all of you for being here. And
Hello.
so much of the isolation, we don't understand, we don't know how it's impacting us. So it is really good to continue to connect in environments and situations like this until we can be back together. So thank you again. Thanks, Maritza. Thanks, Rosemary and Christine.
Thank you, Meryl.
Thank you.
Christine, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi. I don't know that my video is working properly. Can you see me?
No, I can't, but
I
that's
know
okay.
I can't get my video on for some reason, but may I ask a question?
By all means.
Okay. Hi, Marissa, this is Joni Sherbo. I'm working with Encore as well. And a lot of the things that Rosemary has explained or talked about herself would apply to me as well. A lifelong person, volunteer, very concerned with social issues. I've got a doctorate in the social sciences. And one of the things that brought me to my coaching degree was that I too realized the large cohort of older people in our society and how underused they are and how often confused without purpose and meaning and floundering and on the golf course or traveling or whatnot and just lamenting a new wrinkle, a new heart problem and whatnot, and felt that we had so desperately avoided this underused cohort, which was growing bigger and bigger as the years went on because of medical advances, sanitation, so on and so forth. And this seems to be true worldwide, not just in America. But my question to you is, as a coach myself, when you talk about going from the internal to the external and then gradually into the proactive, where do you find it's most difficult to help people move forward?
So if I understand the question correctly, first of all, thank you for being here and congrats on all you have done and studied and also for being part of Encore. If I understand the question correctly, you are asking where do I find it most difficult to guide or help people move forward?
Yes.
And yeah, and I would say most difficult. Well, first of all, I'll correct even myself a little bit. External and internal work and recovery are kind of both. Some people go from the outside in. And so one thought I had when Rosemary was speaking about Encore itself, immediately I raised my hand. And I always do when I hear her speak. Like, how can I help you build Encore further? I have implementation skills from my own business coaches and business growth savviness and implementation skills that I can share. And so I would say to you that answers your question, Joni, in the sense that, let's give an example. An ideal client will usually come to me either through social media or after seeing me speak, virtually or in person. Why? Because the attraction is initially energy. Right? I want what she's eating. I want what she's drinking. Wait, she's how old? That kind of thing, right? Because we all react to not exactly content. Content is 7% of what allows a person to connect with another person. 93% is mirroring, listening, energy. It's not the tangible. It's not the words, the presentation. It's not the degrees of accomplishment. It's energetic and it's just attracting like, or aspirationally attracting. So the most difficult thing I find is that often, and I think it's a societal construct, we have been brought up to think that some people are lucky. We hear a lot of people will pay them compliment to you, right? Oh, you're so lucky that this or that. And sure, there is an aspect of luck. We all know the cliche that we make our own luck, or that when preparation meets opportunity, that's luck, right? But the truth of the matter is the challenge is not in getting people to listen. It's not in getting people to invest in themselves. It's in getting them actionable. We are creatures of habit. Our beliefs, our thoughts form our beliefs. Our beliefs form our habits, and our habits create our current reality and our outcomes, right? So we think and we believe, whatever that may be. Is it true still? Is it not true? We don't know, but we believe it because most of that is ingrained in our neural pathways. Dr. Callan can speak more to neuroscience, right? But it's in our subconscious mind, most of the information, right? So you might hear me, you might say, heck yeah, I went to Tony Robbins, or I went to Mel Robbins, or I read this book and I'm gonna do that. And then what happens 48 hours later? Nothing changes. So it's in the action. That's what I find most difficult. So this is where, what are solutions to that, to getting ourselves to change a habit? Well, first of all, Atomic Habits by James Cleary, I think it is, addresses this very well as does Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. But the trick is this. The trick is, why do I want to make this change? The why is very important. And then the other trick is small increments. If you put your sneakers on and you say, I'm going to walk for 5 minutes, once you're hot and in your sneakers and you hit the pavement or the sand, chances are you'll go more like 10 or 15. Right? So what we do is we say, I've got 30 pounds to lose. That would make me quit too. But if I said, I'm going to drink more water today, I'm going to have a full glass of water when I wake up in the morning, and one before each meal and one at night. Like, that's the goal, is those glasses of water. Then that's an incremental change. The last aspect I'll say on this is accountability. We have self-discipline and personal responsibility. We are human. We will not hold ourselves accountable the way another individual can do it for us. I have an accountability partner I speak to every morning, 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. every single day except Saturday and Sunday. And even then we memo sometimes because we're so used to being in each other's lives. And I change who that individual is every 3 to 6 months. Because if there's a comfort level, then the accountability decreases. That thinking of, I don't want to let Donnie down today, or I told him I would do this and it's 8 p.m., but I need to send that email to be able to check it off the list, right? So accountability partners, small incremental changes, and habits, beliefs and habits. There's a lot of mind work that goes into changing. Is that helpful, Joni? Is that answering you in a very long way?
Yes, it is helpful. I'm just thinking of how we could apply it to getting people to move into volunteer work. As Rosemary said, there is a decrease. I remember when Bush put out his 1,000 points of light, and everybody sort of rallied to it. And then, of course, he got defeated presidentially, and that was the end of it. It's still around, but I'm just thinking about how we can transfer that into people who are looking for something that will really grab them and get them out of themselves and make it really worthwhile for them to take those incremental steps and then maybe larger ones.
This is so cool, Joni. May I interrupt? It's a marketing question, which I love because I love business coaching too. It's a marketing question. The messaging has changed. And because there's so much noise in the digital realm, we must put out a message that is attracting the person we want. Does that make sense? It can't be about us and our organization. It has to be about the ideal profile of that individual. An example of that is if I say in my marketing, are you tired of more of the same? You say it's going to change and nothing changes. A woman reads that and goes, oh, how does she know? I thought I was hiding that better. Like, I need to speak to this woman. So in volunteerism, when Urban Impact said to me, these young people, we want them to be the ones to speak at the lectern, at the event, but they're not prepared to do that. I raised my hand. I love training public speakers, right? They knew they were touching me where I can connect. They also knew I'm a kid who grew up in the urban area of Washington Heights in New York, right? And they knew I'm Hispanic. My parents are Dominican. So there's connection. So in our messaging, when we're recruiting volunteers, it has to be a message that speaks to them, not to what we already know. Does that make sense?
Yes,
That's
of
how
course.
marketing is changing. That's how marketing is changing. That's why all this vulnerability, authenticity, these are all the, you know, the hashtags and the words, but it's because you're attracting the person who says, oh, that's me. How did she know?
Interesting. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Mhm.
This is great information. This is fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joni, for your great question. And thank you, Maritza, for all you've shared. And I did want to remind everyone that if you go to the encorepbc.org page and sign up for our emails, you will be able to get notified of all our upcoming events, as well as so many other things that are happening and opportunities for volunteerism and some resources for jobs as well. I have one more question here. Let's see before we close off. Okay.
I saw Sheila is waving her hand. Sheila might have something she wants to say before we say goodbye.
Thanks, Maritza. I have actually several little things. So number one, what was the why book? Number two, Rosemary, you talk about volunteerism and like you're still looking for yourself, and it seems like you're not even considering Encore as you're volunteering. I also wanted to say, Maritza, I like your 3 V's, which fit with my 3 C's: connect, communicate, create. And I'm looking at, you know, the different things. So thank you for that. And Joni, for your video, your camera, I assume you unhooked or unlined the stop video.
I did. And
Okay.
it's not listening.
Okay, if you go right next to it, you might have, if you're on a computer, it says video settings, select a camera, etc. on that little up arrow. So
I'm on my iPhone, actually. I'm not home. I'm not on my computer. So.
okay. Do you want to
Sheila,
connect later? We can play with it.
Sheila, that's very nice of you to help her. And quickly, the author of these books and has built his entire platform on purpose and why is Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. The first bestseller was Starting with Why. And then the actionable one for individuals and corporate teams is Finding Your Why.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This was awesome.
I got the video.
Okay. Now we can thank you and say goodbye.
Bye, bye.
Bye.
Also, please, when you visit Encore PBC, we have a great event coming up, Wisdom and Experience. And this is to recognize employers who do work with the over 50 plus. So definitely learn more about that and how you can work with Encore to help make that a success. And Maritza will be looking forward to your recording, and as well as the PDF, because I see a lot of people are still in the chat room, still looking to digest a little bit more. So I think the PDF would be a great resource as well. So I want to thank you for sharing your time with us. Thank you for Rosemary. As always, she's an inspiration. And thank you all for joining us. And again, go to Encore and get our email, sign up for our email so you can stay tuned. We promise not to spam you, just to keep you informed of what's happening. Thank you so much all. Maritza, thank you.